You're listening to episode 18 of the Millennovator podcast, where today we are interviewing Pete McPherson from Do You Even Blog. The guy shoots it straighter than an arrow.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think imposter syndrome is real and it's stupid. Like, as entrepreneurs, fearless is probably our best trait, right?
You're listening to the Millennovator podcast, where we host the most innovative millennial entrepreneurs, and you learn the secret tips, proven tricks, and profitable tools they have picked up from entrepreneurial infancy to straight up business empire, and every stage in between. And now, your hosts and money Millennovators, Jonathan and Will.
Give me the right now, go right now. I'm trying to sit it now, go right now. We trying to get it now.
If you are listening to the show today, it is about December in your time, middle December. Is that right, Jonathan? Or something like that? When this
According
launches?
to my calculations, that is
Close
correct.
to it. Anyway, I want you to be thinking about your goals for next year.
Goals?
But before you do that, and Jonathan and I have done this, I want you to think about where you failed this year. And I don't want you to be your own critic. I don't want you to be too tough on yourself, but I want you to really sit back and look at where you failed and why you failed.
The why is very important.
Yeah. Well, did you not have enough time? No. Did you not put enough time in? Were you not working after your day job at 5 on that side hustle? Did you take off some Saturdays from your friends to devote some time to that side hustle? Why did you fail? Really challenge yourself to think. I know this has nothing to do with our show today, by the way.
It really doesn't.
At all. But this is something that's been going through my head. I left choir practice earlier.
Choir practice?
Choir practice. It was a disaster. We have a church Christmas choir coming up this year. And Haley, my fiance, and I were like, yeah, let's join the Christmas choir. Seems like a good idea, right, Jonathan? You lead praise and worship.
I do. You got two musical podcasters here, I'm just saying.
So we thought, great idea. Haley's no past choir experience, formal choir.
Really?
Yeah. I grew up in show choir in high school, sang a solo off Broadway for those of you that didn't know that.
I've seen it. It's pretty awesome.
So we went to choir practice, and let me tell you what, I haven't sang a melody or a tenor line in a long time. And it was really bad. So the guy next to me was like, hey, I've never been in a choir before. Are you reading the notes? I was like, yeah. He was like, wow. I was like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that it sounds that note. The note that comes out of me is not that note. It was really, really bad. And I'm not going to challenge myself to see why I failed because that's too difficult. But I want you to think about your goals before we segue into the interview with Pete. Super cool, by the way, guys. This is going to be a high-level interview. I really love the perspective that Pete brings.
Yeah, very different. I really enjoyed the interview with Pete because it was, in my opinion, much different than anything that we've had in the past. Just he has a very unique perspective on things, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and he's not concerned about what other people think. He's not concerned about
Definitely
a crowded
not.
space. He goes out of his way to appoint a relationship with a stranger, and you'll learn all of those things in the interview that's coming up with Mr. Pete McPherson. So, Jonathan, you ready?
Okay, hold on.
What's up?
I'm going to have to, in love, correct you there, bro. It's McPherson. McPherson. So my mom's maiden name happens to be McPherson. And it's hilarious because just like Willie D here, most people just can't make themselves say McPherson. They always want to say McPherson for some reason. So Will did say McPherson on the podcast, in the interview, and Pete did say McPherson back, but I don't think Will picked up. I'm telling you, it's something in people. They just can't make themselves say McPherson. So anyway.
Without further ado, those of you listening, you are about to tune in to Mr. Pete McPherson.
There you go.
Of Do You Even Blog, who is out in the trenches getting it done. Full-time entrepreneur, turned a side hustle into a full-time gig, quit his corporate job to do this right here. Listen to the story from Pete McPherson now. All right, Millennovator peeps, I'm sitting here with Jonathan, as I always do, and I have got Mr. Pete McPherson, not to be confused with Jonathan's cousin, the rockabilly JD McPherson. I don't think there's any connection there, is there, Pete?
No, not that I'm aware.
So, Pete, let us know, you've built a tribe around bloggers. Let us know what you're doing today, and then we can backpedal and what got you there.
Thank you for having me on. First of all, my name's Pete McPherson. Today, I am actually I just drove in. I got my coffee. I woke up late. There's no corporate lifestyle at all for me today. I'm very fortunate in that. So
Nice.
I run a podcast and a blog and YouTube videos, really just kind of trying to hit all different mediums with the same brand, which is, do you even blog? So I know it's a crowded niche. I teach people how to think about work differently and make money differently outside of corporate America, the 9 to 5. I teach people how to blog and produce better content and sell their content. All those corny things that you like to hear about in the, online entrepreneurship, digital marketing niches. But yeah, very fortunate. I do the podcast and the blog full-time these days.
And I complimented you not long ago, and I'm going to do it again on the air. Your blogs are awesome, man. The amount of time you put into those, you can tell you're doing this full-time.
Thank you.
It's really great. For those of you that are just now hopping on, listening to the show, go check out Pete's blog. Do You Even Blog? Is that a .com, Pete?
Yes,
Cool.
doyouevenblog.com.
So I got to ask you, you've always been an entrepreneur, right?
Well, I don't know. There's a weird question, like people say, oh, you can't become an entrepreneur. Or some people say that. Some people say, oh, you can't become an entrepreneur.
You can become whatever you want to. I don't like that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And to answer your question, Will, no, absolutely not. So I was not one of those people. We talked about this off air last time. I was not one of those people that like grew up trading baseball cards for money. And like I was selling lemonade to like hustle when I was like 5 years old. That was not me at all. Like I had absolutely none of that ingrained in me. All through middle school, high school, college, like I went the very, very standard path to like the American dream, right? I was just like funneled through life through like, oh, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get your grad degree, which I did, get a corporate job, which I did. And I was pretty miserable throughout all of that. So to be quite frank with you, I kind of rediscovered / fell into entrepreneurship. Maybe like 5 years ago now. I don't remember the year, but I just kind of one day discovered, of course, the Timothy Ferriss, author of the 4 Hour Workweek, and the Pat Flynn, the top of the funnel where people want to learn how to blog, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I discovered these guys one day and I was like, oh, something just like snapped. It really was like something out of a movie. I was just like, oh, this is what I want to do. And so
That's it.
Don't get me wrong. It was not like an overnight switch by any means, but I kept learning, I kept reading, I kept growing. And yeah, I did not have that history of like, oh, I was a 3-year-old entrepreneur and I'm such a badass like all this time. There was absolutely none of that. No, none of that.
I was slinging breast milk and take care. Well, the thing is, and let me ask you, Pete, what kind of led you to that point of saying, in fact, we have a Facebook group and somebody the other day posted in that. The group's really all geared around creating passive income.
Yep.
Somebody posted in that and they said, of course, real estate is great. And of course, you can get involved in multifamily housing. And of course, that is a fantastic thing to do. But investing in yourself and a trade that can create someone else lots and lots of money is one of the top things you can do today without needing any cash, usually, to get started. What was the point that you said, like, I'm going to invest all of this time and effort into learning about entrepreneurship? Why?
Unknowingly, you pretty much just like answered it. You don't know this yet. So when I was in corporate America, I was really good at my job. Like I'm not even bragging when I say that. Like I'm really good with computers and tech and software. And so when I came on board with this huge company, I won't say their name, but they're in Atlanta and they're called Northside Hospital. Amazing, amazing company. Like I loved my coworkers. I loved the organization, everything. But they're a like $7 billion nonprofit healthcare chain. And so they're a little old school. Like the computers they use were a little old. The software, their systems, their processes were a little old. So when I started, I came on board and I was like, what are you guys doing? Like I switched over my entire job. Like I just optimized for like 3 or 4 months straight. Me and my boss, by the way, this is not just me, but we pretty much took like my 40-hour work week and we turned it down to, literally like a 4-hour work week. Me and my boss, like we did this together. I took over all my boss's duties because he got promoted and we did the same thing, both of us, over like 3 months. So 6 months on the job, Will and Jonathan, like I'm super bored. Like I have my work, my boss and I have optimized it. I'm super bored. And so I'm just surfing the internet at work, trying to find things to optimize my time. And so I'm into personal finance, passive income, was also what I was like searching for. This day, the one day that I eventually found kind of online entrepreneurship, so to speak, I was searching for additional streams of passive income. I was already doing dividend investing. I was doing, a bunch of personal financial independence related stuff, but I had just started to explore passive income, and that's when I found Pat's blog. And that was like the gateway, the doorway into entrepreneurship for me. That's what kind of started it all. I just landed on this site, searching for passive income, just like everybody in your Facebook group. And yeah, man, that was just like the spark that kind of ignited all of this, if that makes any sense.
That's really awesome, because going back to what you said a few minutes ago, especially in online marketing, in my opinion, it doesn't happen quick. You see Pat Flynn, you see John Lee Dumas and those guys, they've been doing it for years, and it took years of consistency to really get those businesses off the ground. And so what you said a while ago about just continuing to educate yourself, continuing to get your stuff out there, I think a lot of people, when they think about entrepreneurship, and we try to explain it on the show, it's not always just a beautiful, pretty thing. It's messy. It's hard. So I appreciate you saying that, because it is hard and it does take time. I mean, even what we're doing right here, I mean, you just have to be consistent, and we're growing and growing and growing. But if you don't consistently get out there, and battle in the trenches and just get this stuff, like I always say, just get after it, then it'll build if you just continue to do that.
Yeah. Can I actually go off on a rant for a second?
Yeah, please
Go ahead, man.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever said this on air before, but this is truly what I think. For all your fans listening, please don't get offended, but screw passive income. Screw passive income. Like, you'll hear over and over again, oh, passive income does exist, but it's super, super hard to get. I think all of that is it's just sales and marketing. And to me, passive income is boring. Of course, no one wants to trade their time for dollars. That's why most people these days become entrepreneurs. If you can indeed become entrepreneurs, it's because they're searching for that. They don't want to trade their time for dollars. They want more freedom. They want more control. They want more flexibility. And so I say, screw passive income, go for leveraged income. I have no desire to retire, Will and Jonathan. Like, I have no desire to not work ever in my life. Like, I like getting up every morning and working. But what I really want is, well, like I said, not passive income, but I want to spend those same exact hours, but earning 10x the money than I would if I were in a normal job.
Yeah.
So I don't think about passive income at all anymore. I think it's mostly a myth in people's eyes these days. And I just hate that idea. I hate that people chase it and they think, oh, I want money for nothing. Or, oh, I want to build this thing and then work 4 hours a week while I make like 20 grand a week because I spent all this time building an online course. Like, screw that. Think about leveraging your time for money. Think about earning 10x what everybody else does in the same amount of hours. That's my strategy. That's my rant.
I love that. And you want to be able to do that with what you love doing. If it's producing content, that doesn't feel like work for you, Pete. And that's exactly why you feel like you could do that until you're on your deathbed at 89 years old or whatever, right?
Oh, I could do these rants all the time.
yeah, precisely. So we'll be looking out for the Do You Even blog as an 88-year-old for you in the next 40 years,
Totally, man.
Let me ask you this, Pete. I know a lot of people listening are like, well, and I've been here too. I'm very guilty of this. Looking at the Pat Flynn's, the Tim Ferrisses, saying, the Rick Mulready's, the Amy Porterfields, saying, I know why they're doing this and why they're creating content and why they're on the air and why they have a podcast. It's because they're good at it. It's because they're just naturally gifted and great, and they sound great, and they know what they're talking about, and they look amazing on video. And that's why they chose to do this. Can you talk about that? Because I, for one, you know what? I'm going to get into that in a second. I want to hear your opinion first.
Okay. I would say this is going to be contrarian in two different ways. One, they're absolutely right. They are good at it. Tim Ferriss is really, really good at interviewing people. Pat Flynn is thebomb.com at running a full-time content business these days. But here's the thing. They all sucked when they first started. I don't care who, like all those people you just named, Amy Porterfield, Pat, Tim, they all have imposter syndrome. Like, we all have imposter syndrome. Oh, we're not that good. I could never be that good. I could never produce X, Y, Z. It doesn't matter. They all have that too. You can pretty much find this on every big blogger's site. Like JLD, you can go back and listen to his first couple of episodes. You can look at the first couple of things that he did on Entrepreneur Fire. It was bad.
Really bad.
Pat's first stuff, it was bad.
Yeah.
You know what separates all those people from the people who think and say what you just said?
Like, they do it. They start.
Yeah, They start and they don't give up. They are relentless.
Yeah,
I'm not going to use the word persistent because I don't like that word as much. Relentless. Pat Flynn was relentless. Tim Ferriss, oh my God, dude, that guy is crazy. I think that's important to remember. Pretty much everybody, myself included, by the way, I'm right there with you. I think it's just important for all of us to remember that those guys sucked back in the day. They didn't start off amazing. Tim Ferriss has interviewed how many people now? Pat Flynn has produced how many podcasts and blogs? Like, it's insane.
You hit the nail on the head. Exactly what I was going to say is when Jonathan and I first started the show and had the idea of the show, first of all, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Initially I'm like, let's do it. I could talk about entrepreneurship and the millennial generation starting businesses all day long. But then, that imposter syndrome creeps in and you're like, well, who are you to talk about this? Why should you say that? You don't have decades of experience in this, and your voice is this way and you act that way and you don't have this and that. And I actually went back and listened and watched some of Pat's first YouTube videos, and he would be so upset to hear this because he talks about it all the time. Like, I cringe when I go back and look at my, initial content. And I cringe even, we're 16 weeks,
we're not even that far in.
16, 17 weeks in here at the time of recording, and I look back on episode 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, oh gosh, should we delete these? These are so bad. And video's the same way, but you're so right. If you have that fear, if you're worried about that, go to some of these icons that are out there that you see as an icon and dig in and dig and dig and look at some of their deepest, darkest past, first pieces of content. You'll feel a lot more comfortable realizing they're human too. They're just like you and I. They appear so great at it because they've done it consistently and relentlessly for the last, 3, 4, 5 years.
You know what's funny? Let me tell you a quick story about this. So I suffer from imposter syndrome probably more than most other people. Like, I'm probably above the average. I just do. Like, I doubt myself constantly. And so I was very fortunate at FinCon to literally get grabbed. Like, I was at the bar trying to watch the Georgia game just for like 10 minutes away from everybody. And then I feel a tug at my shoulder and I turn around and it's my friend. It's Rosemary Groner, who owns busybudgeter.com.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, it's $120,000 a month blog at this point. It's insane. So I went and sat with her, trying to make this story very short. The bottom line is we were talking about some of my biggest weaknesses. She was like, do you want to talk about that? And I was like, sure, I'll talk about my biggest weaknesses. Focus, for one. I suck at focus. And two, I doubt myself just constantly. I do. I have that fear that I'm not good enough. I will never be good enough. It's one thing for us to kind of like talk about it right here. And it's one thing for me to read that in the book and think like, oh, of course, John Lee Dumas had imposter syndrome true. But it's another thing to be sitting with someone you look up to. For me, I very much look up to Rosemary. She's incredible. She said, stop. She literally just said that. She's like, stop. Everybody has imposter syndrome. All these keynote speakers here at FinCon, which was like Darren Rouse at ProBlogger and Paula Pand at Afford Anything, like all these literally millionaire bloggers and entrepreneurs. She was like, just stop. Everyone has that. This is the big secret. There is no secret. Like, everybody has their doubts and imposter syndrome. And for me, that was like 1,000 times more effective hearing it out of her lips, like somebody I really, really looked up to. And I was like, oh, damn, she's right. It doesn't matter how many times I've heard it before, but Rosemary said it one time. I was like, oh, damn, she's right. Yeah, I think you're right on. I think imposter syndrome is real and it's stupid. Like, as entrepreneurs, fearless is like probably like our best trait, right? So however we can cultivate that, man, I think the better.
Well, really, a lot of times when you have that mindset towards yourself, it really creates double-mindedness, which, in my opinion, having double-mindedness really just makes you do nothing because you really don't know which route to go. And like we were talking about before, and consistency and just really getting after it, you have to constantly be getting stuff out there. You have to continually be educating yourself, learning. And for us, I know for Will and I, that's just by getting out there and doing it.
Right.
So that double-mindedness, in my opinion, is really, you don't know which way to go. So you just don't do anything. And that's, in this line of business especially, is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
I agree.
And Pete, 100%. I love this interview with you because you are out there, and you mentioned it earlier briefly, you're out there in the trenches every single day. You're still, I mean, not that those guys, the top of the top, aren't hustling. They're hustling in a different way, right? I mean, but you're out there getting it every single day. You're grinding it out. You've just launched this community not long ago, and you've seen some pretty good success here recently. Can you talk about like what that driving factor for you, and this changes. Everyone, those of you listening, your driving factor is not going to be the same as mine. It's not going to be the same as Pete's, and Pete's driving factor is probably not going to be the same as mine either. But like, what gets you up each and every day and makes you say, all right, I'm hungry, I'm ready, I'm motivated, let's get it out there?
Over the past several years, once I kind of quote unquote refound entrepreneurship somehow, like I said before, I also really bad at focusing. So I have shiny object syndrome. I've tried a bunch of stuff. I tried stuff in personal finance, both like a SaaS company, and I blogged about personal finance for a while. I've done service businesses. I've done just freelancing with digital marketing and writing and ghostwriting and blogging and podcasting. I've done like all sorts of things. And when I started this project, I think this is kind of important. When I started Do You Even Blog, I just had this feeling, I have 7 business ideas that I think I would like to try out. 6 of them are probably going to be terrible. One of them is probably going to be extra terrible. Like I could try these things out, and they're niche enough where I think I could make some money. It's stuff that maybe a little bit of innovation in there. And at the end of the day, I was like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to do blogging. Blogging is what I care about. Like, I know it's a crowded niche. I know the JLDs and the Pat Flynn's and like all these people kind of already have this niche locked up. Brian Dean, Neil Patel, like these guys. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't want to do anything different. I don't want to do anything different. I don't care how competitive the landscape is. I don't care if I'm going to be stuck in the trenches for 12 months making pennies while I build up an audience. Like, I don't care. This is literally, okay. Can we curse on this? We've already cursed a few times. I'll just say F it. I woke up one morning, I was talking to my wife, and I was just like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to give it my all. And I hadn't said that about a single project before this. I was kind of going in, looking to make some money, and then I would get out really quick if it wasn't making money. And with Do You Even Blog, I was like, you know what? I can't do anything but this. This is what I want to do, and screw it. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to like go for the 10X where everyone else who is starting a how to blog is going for like 10%.
Right.
I'm just jump in and I'm going to do it. So I hope that helps answer your question. The driving force would be that I tried so long to just try and get little entrepreneurial ventures that made money. And eventually I was like, I just can't do any of that anymore. I can't do anything but this. Do You Even Blog? So this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I figured that out. I'm very lucky to have figured that out. And so I have no problems staying motivated to wake up and work. I have, like today, maybe I will 6 months from now. I have no idea.
Sure.
But today I'm just fired up. I'm ready to talk about blogging because I don't want to do anything else. I don't know. That's a pretty terrible answer to your question.
No, it's not.
Maybe,
I think you nailed it when you said this is just your passion. You didn't worry that someone else was already in your passion space. You didn't worry that someone great is in your passion space. What you thought is, this is my passion space. I'm going to do anything and everything I can to work in it. Right.
Yep.
And the good news for you and for everyone else out there, well, the bad news for most people out there is, there's not a lot of stuff someone else isn't doing and isn't doing well. Okay. Get past that. That does not matter. Yeah. There are plenty of consumers out there, and your opinion and the way that you present yourself and the way that you talk and the way that you write and the way that who you are, Pete, is what people are focusing in on. And Mark Asquith did a really good job on our show a few weeks back when he talked about, why are people not branding themselves? Like, people are too stuck on, this is my product, this is my viewpoint, this is what I release, here's my course. People buy people. And like, still, that still happens every single day. People buy people. So don't get caught up in someone else doing what you're doing, because you're not them. And that's a very good thing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, hey, you two guys are also stuck in this. Like, you're starting a podcast on entrepreneurship, which is, hey,
precisely.
Essentially competing against each other, but it's not really competing at all. I also would encourage people. There's a great book by Malcolm Gladwell. He did The Tipping Point. He did David and Goliath, and a few other ones. Really, really great author. I love his stuff. David and Goliath is a book about taking disadvantages and then seeing that they were actually advantages. Does that make any sense? Like when Jack Ma, who owns Alibaba, like one of the biggest companies on the entire planet. When he first started out, they had zero funding, zero money. Like they weren't a startup. They weren't like venture backed. When he started Alibaba, they had zero money and they were trying to compete with like these billion-dollar corporations. And looking back, he's like, that was our biggest advantage. We had to do crazy stuff that our competitors would never even dream of because they had resources. We didn't have any resources. We had to do crazy stuff.
Nice.
And thinking about you two guys and doing Millennovator and me doing Do You Even Blog, Neil Patel, digital marketing guy, Brian Deem, SEO and digital marketing guy, Pat Flynn, blogging guy. I have a huge, huge advantage over all of those guys. And it's going to seem like a disadvantage, and that is I'm small. Right. I don't have an audience of 3 million people to be held responsible to and accountable to. I can move a lot faster. I can be super transparent, which, by the way, none of those guys are. Pat Flynn more so than Brian and Neil maybe, but I can be something that they can't be. And you're absolutely right. When you're talking about personal branding, that is all this is. Like I have a huge advantage, and that is I don't have the big audience. And I get to start branding myself right now as the honest guy, the transparent guy, the rant guy, because I blather on if you can't already figure that out. So, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think personal branding is huge. And I think for anybody just starting out, especially in crowded niches, don't be scared of competition because it's not really your competition at all.
No.
You're you, and you can only do the best thing that you can, period.
And there are plenty of consumers out there. Please, for the love, be an abundant thinker. Please be an abundant thinker. That is the number one thing that I've kind of learned is, and when I've held back, it's come back and it's kicked me. That's happened multiple times since we founded Millennovator. Is I've been like, this is tight to the vest. This is what I should do. And then it's totally kicked me. Thinking on the opposite end, on being abundant, I was speaking with somebody yesterday who literally just locally, like Harvest Roots, man, sent me a message on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I don't know you. I love what you're doing. I see your stuff. I've got some ideas. Can we like grab coffee and just bounce those off of you? And I'm thinking, well, you're in this background space. I don't have an advantage on that. Who cares? Just go meet with someone, talk, be a human, form a relationship. It doesn't matter. So we went and talked, and turns out he is running a whole other side of his business now and hoping to get into the digital space of creating sales funnels and the Facebook marketing side for small businesses. And Jonathan and I play in that world. And, I'm not shy about telling him what works for me, just as he wasn't shy of saying, hey, actually, I've got a pitch deck that's worked really well. I've closed like 4 out of the 6 deals that I've shown this pitch deck to. Do you want me to send it to you?
Yes, please. Ooh, you want to hear another story about this?
Yes.
This is straight off the Tim Ferriss podcast. But for anybody who hasn't listened to that, I'll share it. So Tim had gone to South by Southwest back when it was actually cool, several years ago, 2006, 2008, something like that. He kind of went in with this mindset of just kind of going with the flow. And it's a total, was it Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yes.
Like he totally went in with this mindset to reach bloggers for whatever reason. He was trying to get the initial, I think this is the right story. I think he was trying to get the initial version of the 4-Hour Workweek into lots of different bloggers' hands so they could help promote it or whatnot. He saw this dude. I don't remember who the guy was, but it was like the dude that everybody was looking for. Everybody wanted to meet with this guy. They were like, it was literally at a bar. Everybody was like just waiting, just looking at this guy, waiting for their opportunity to go up and chat with him. And Tim was like right with everybody, but he didn't. He went over and he talked with like some random woman that happened to be there helping out with the event. She was all by herself. Maybe she was like handing out drink tickets or something. I don't know. But Tim went and like talked with her for half hour. And the end of the story is that was the guy's wife.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of the day, she was like, hey, come meet Tim Ferriss. I talked with him for like several hours. And then he went over to their house and like had dinner. And it's just this incredible attitude of going into meetings like Will's with just this mindset of not just abundance, but who knows what could happen. Like you cannot do any wrong in making friends with people and connecting with people. There's absolutely nothing. There's no downside to that.
Pete, I'll confess, when he told me, hey, I'm meeting with this guy and he's in this field, the field that we thought he was in. I guess he's still in it. But I was like, why are you going to meet with that guy?
Shame on you.
I had a bad mindset, Pete.
Yeah.
I apologize.
But Pete, you're right. Like, and it's funny how we as humans pre-qualify folks. Like if I have sales leads in a pipeline and I'm able to see from pre-collected data that they are making this much money, that their company's name is this, that their first name is this. Like I preconceive this notion that, they're not going to buy this, right? That's not true. Like, what are you doing? Stop. It's the same way of going into meetings. Like, you can't pre-qualify anyone without first discussing with an open mindset. That's and don't be. Gosh, that's my recent rant for this week. That's happened to me more than not. And so I think Pete, you've inspired me. I've got to make my vlog this week on that. That's great.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep dropping resources because apparently I've been doing that this entire podcast. Guerrilla Marketing is a great book by, I think it's J. Conrad Stevenson. I don't know. You can look it up. They talk a lot about used car salesmen and what makes like these top 1% earners of used car salesmen, which is normally like a little sleazy thing. And we all think about it. But there are dudes that are just not dudes. There are people, men and women, who are just like crushing it. And they do a lot of case studies in the book. And basically what they found out was, well, exactly what you just said. The best car salespeople, I'm trying to be like politically correct here. The best car salespeople don't pre-qualify anybody. They see like the little teenager who looks like he has absolutely no money, like walking around the lot, or the housewife who looks like she would never make a buying decision. They have absolutely no prejudgments on those people. And I think they're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. We judge people instantaneously sometimes, and we kind of like discount, they're not in my market. They can't help me. They can't help me, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a bad mindset.
I love that. I'm glad we kind of uncovered that real quickly on the end of the show. Thanks for that, Pete.
Yeah, man.
So Pete, for our listeners out there who are tuning in today, whether it's episode drop day, the day we've launched this episode, or it's 5 years down the road, because we all know you're going to be blogging until you're 89, like we said earlier. Where can folks find you and take advantage of the resources you've mentioned today?
Yeah, I want people to go just straight to my homepage and nowhere else. doyouevenblog.com. You can find everything from there. You can hit me on Twitter. I'm really active. You can email me. I respond to every email. I have the blog. I have the podcast on there. I have a sweet little opt-in where you can give me your email address straight up, and I'll send you a fun little outreach template that I use to contact and make friends with people like John Lee Dumas and Seth Godin and Pat Flynn and all those guys.
Is that how you win friends and influence people, Pete?
I know, man. That's exactly right. You go to doyouevenblog.com.
Pete, I was on your website a couple of days ago, and I was looking at your podcast, actually, and I was really like, we obviously are doing a podcast now, so we have show notes, right? That's just part of it.
Yeah.
And your show notes were like a full-on blog. I was like, man, this is legit.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got to have our editor, Robbie, insert the round of applause there.
Yeah, that's actually one of my freelancing gigs at the moment. I've had,
nice.
I think 4 podcasts reach out to me now like, hey, will you do our show notes? Will you do our show notes?
That's awesome.
That's
Pete.
awesome. Yeah.
I said yes to the first one, and ever since then I've said no because it's not really high ROI. So to speak.
I wouldn't think it would be.
Yeah, that's a lot of work on that. But Pete, man, fantastic. Well done. You're an awesome writer. You're an awesome entrepreneur, and even an awesome mediapreneur, as our buddy PT with FinCon would say.
Oh, yeah.
So keep doing what you're doing, man. We hope to have you back in a few years and share where the heck you are then. Where in the world is Pete McPherson, I guess.
I really appreciate it, Will and Jonathan. I'll catch up with you guys hopefully sometime in the Ham. I'm only about 2 hours away. So
yeah. Come on.
Come see us. I've seen you twice I guess only once actually face to face, but we can make it twice before the end of the year. Sure.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. Thank you again.
Thanks again, Pete. All right. Quit being afraid to step into the world and do what you want to do, not what you have to do to make money, right? Like Pete just mentioned to you that he had a great job. He was killing it. He was bored at work, right? He did so well. He worked himself out of the job, but they were like, dude, you're so good. They probably were like, we're going to, of course, keep paying you. Had a 4-hour work week. So he was like, what else can I do to make really good money? And then he was infatuated and fascinated by this online, mediapreneur business of blogging. And when Pete says blogging, by the way, for those of you who think of like a traditional blog as in like I'm writing once every Tuesday, he means not just blogging, but video creation, monetizing YouTube,
everything encompasses.
Courses, having a great email list, like all that kind of stuff. The guy's in the business of helping you create an online presence through blogging. And he does a dang good job at it, and he loves every single bit of what he does. And it's all because he wasn't afraid to stick his neck out there and just do it, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I think there's a lot of our listeners who have been in that same boat. And if you're not still right now, you get bored at work and you're just kind of like, man,
what else can I do with my spare time?
Well, yeah, so many thoughts rush through your head like, oh gosh, it's just the typical millennial thought process. But I always like to go back to what Jenny Blake said in her book Pivot about that being the point where you really take, like Pete did here. It's like, man, I really see this as very interesting, even though it's saturated with people who are crushing it in that space. But still, going back to that fear, he wasn't fearful. He realized, okay, they're doing a great job and there's a lot of people doing it, but that doesn't mean I can't do it, right?
His opinion is not their opinion.
Yeah. And that's what I appreciate about Pete. He's not afraid, and you can clearly see that or hear that, by the way, in his interview. So that leads me into wondering why, well, it seems we have some fear out there with some of our listeners.
As you know, as a frequent listener of ours, by the way, you guys rock. We've seen an uptick. Like, we're super pumped to have you guys on the show.
Really
Somebody's sharing the love, I can tell. And for those of you who are, thank you so much for supporting us and supporting other innovative millennial entrepreneurs just like yourself. But you can support in one other way too, and that is through the Power Pitch. Jonathan and I have talked about the Power Pitch, which is a way to expose your brand, to expose your side hustle on our show. What we do is we ask you to go to our website, look on the right side of the screen, click a button, and record a less than 90-second elevator pitch of your side hustle, your idea, your dream, your business, whatever that is. And Jonathan and I siphon through those and we pick the best ones that we really like. We're not getting enough submissions from you guys. We really need more submissions to put in the queue. You got to realize we schedule these shows out far, far, far in advance. And we want you guys to leave your elevator pitch. This is a power pitch competition, but we're just not getting enough actual audio recordings.
Yeah.
But you guys are definitely like
You're
emailing
messaging
us and Facebook
us.
messaging us. You're like, hey,
Oh,
what
that
about
sounds
this? What
great.
about that? That's the same thing we're
Just
talking about.
leave the message.
Is leaving it behind, leaving the fear behind, thinking abundantly. No one's going to steal your idea. And if they do, they're not going to do it better than you. I promise you. The majority of people are never going to come up with or be able to get done what you can get done, so long as you get it done. So consider the Power Pitch your accountability method, right? Like, you better get out there and get after it. And so I want to encourage you to go to millennovator.com. Any page on the website, you can leave your 90-second elevator pitch there. We want to hear from you. Think abundantly and share that message. We really do want to share your business or your side hustle or even just your dream and your idea on the show in this segment.
I mean, yeah, think about how awesome it would be when later down the line we can have you who shared your power pitch on the show, and then you create that business, and then we can have you interviewed on the show in the future.
No doubt.
How awesome is that?
And by the way, don't think that some pretty influential people aren't listening to the show. Jonathan and I got an email last week from somebody pretty high up at a group here locally that loves what we're doing. There are all sorts of people listening to the show, and you never know what door could open, whether it's through funding or just somebody wanting to shoot you an email and take you out for coffee and help you along with an idea.
Yep.
Everyone who listens and actively pursues Millennovator, especially this podcast, is an abundant thinker and thinks that they are ready to change this industry of entrepreneurship and this little niche that we're into. So head over to millennovator.com and leave your power pitch. We want to expose you. We want to have you on the show. This is built to create and help endorse your brand. That's all. We're not going to pick you apart. Just go leave it for us. Jonathan, it concludes our episode number 18. Any final thoughts on today's show, like with Pete? I mean, it was a good one.
I really appreciate his perspective on things. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but Pete he's different. He just thinks differently. He thinks abundantly. I will say the one thing about Pete that I really appreciate more than anything is just the fact that he doesn't care what other people think. He is just willing to go out there and get after it despite anything or anyone else telling him you're not going to make it, or there's people out there doing this way better. He knows who he is, and he just gets out there and gets after it. So I can really appreciate that.
Thank you, Pete, for all that you do. Thanks for being on the show. Jonathan, thank you for sitting across from me from the last 18 weeks to put out this show for our listeners. I hope and look forward to another 18 months right by your side, my friend.
Same here, broski. Same here.
Adios, Millennovator pals. Adios.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to call your mother and tell that woman that you love her. And if you love the show almost as much, subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a sweet review. We're definitely not ashamed to blush. Now, go forward and implement what you learned from today's episode into your business. We cannot wait to personally hear your story of success and replicate it 1,000 times over.
Give me the mic, not now, go right now. I'm trying to sit it now.